Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to this week's energy forecast for the 17th through until the 23rd of August 2026. You know, it's really interesting, the energies this week. We are still traveling between eclipses. So we've just come out of the total solar eclipse from the Leo new moon, and we are now heading towards a lunar eclipse on the 28th of this month. So there is this feeling of the story is not quite finished yet this week. And what really stood out for me when I was looking at this week's energy was this movement between or from awareness into embodiment. Last week, we talked about the courage to do the inner work and what happens once we've done the inner work. And isn't that interesting? What happens when we've recognized a pattern? Because there does come a point where we can't really say, I didn't know I was doing that, or I didn't recognize that, or I didn't see that. And once we've seen something in ourselves, we certainly can't, or not entirely, unsee it. And that's not a bad thing. That's where choice begins. For me, embodiment isn't about mastering everything we've learned, because once we master everything that we've learned, then what more is there? What more growth is there? What more reason is there? We're not here to become masters, although, you know, there are those beautiful divine beings whose pathways on this earth plane, that has been their journey. But for us, very ordinary, not ordinary, but you know, yeah, we're ordinary. You know, we're all ordinary, we're all extraordinary, we're all normal, and we're all not normal. So let's not label, shall we? But for the general population, that's a much better phrasing, thank you, Spirit. We're not here to master everything. We're here to, I guess, discover and learn and experience. And so for me, it's about beginning to live differently because of what we've learned. It's about having the opportunity to discover life, love, choices, the polarities, yes, thank you. You know, when we are in our fully expanded, conscious state, whether you call that soul, source consciousness, being that connectedness of the all that is, there is ultimately only unconditional love. That's our experience. And we're here playing human in human school or earth school to not understand, but have that experience of polarity. So as we move forward into the energies in this week ahead, we have at the beginning of the week Venus and Jupiter. And they're forming this beautiful, supportive connection, which astrologically brings themes around relationship, creativity, generosity, pleasure, and expansion. But Mars and Neptune are also in a challenging square this week. And this can create a bit of fog around action and direction. I get this feeling, this sensation of these two coming together. Yes, no, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. And you might know that something needs to change without knowing exactly what you're meant to do about it. And isn't this a beautiful life experience as well? You may be experiencing a lot of emotions and then trying to work this out. You know, it's bringing up a lot of emotions for you. Which direction, which way, what step next, what action can I take? And sometimes just making a decision can feel extremely overwhelming. And I think that we often will question, I know that we do. We question, is this my intuition? Is this fear? Am I reacting? Am I picking up on something else? And I think one of the greatest expressions of self-trust is being able to admit when we don't know. It's okay not to have all of the answers. It's okay not to know what it is that you're wanting to do, or which direction you're wanting to take, or what choice you're wanting to make. We don't have to pretend, force it, manufacture it, just because uncertainty makes us feel uncomfortable. It's okay to sit in that uncertainty and be fully present and acknowledge to yourself, you know what, I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea. And that's okay. And I think that takes so much pressure off having to move forward. It's totally acceptable for us to be still wherever we're at right now. Mercury and Saturn are also supporting more grounded thinking and communication at this time. So they're bringing in a beautiful balance. So instead of demanding the whole answer, come back to this simple internal questioning. What do I know right now? What do I know right now? And then allow whatever you don't know yet to remain open and be comfortable with that. We also have this week Scorpio first quarter moon, and that's towards the end of the week, and it's traditionally where intentions begin meeting action. And Scorpio doesn't tend to particularly be interested in what's happening on the surface. It's a very deep diving, going down into the depths, what's underneath, what's beneath the surface, what's hiding down there. And it wants to know all of that. What are you actually feeling? What's really motivating this? What's really motivating you? And it wants to know what you're afraid of, what are you holding on to, and what truth have you been circling around, which is a really polite and nice way of saying, what are we avoiding? What are we denying? And there's nothing wrong with that also. And because we're still in this eclipse corridor, something that began revealing itself last week may actually start to, I want to say, show up with more clarity. So you might have a deeper insight, it might make sense to you, or you'll just receive an understanding of what everything is meaning for you. This is, however, where it starts to get really interesting, because life can give us an opportunity to actually practice what we've discovered. We can journal on boundaries for 3 weeks. And we can feel internally like we've got a handle on it. And yes, we're like, yes, I'm going to do that. Yes, this is the change I'm going to make. Or yes, I'm going to honor this boundary. And then the universe provides you with somebody that asks you to do something you don't want to do. And suddenly it's not theoretical anymore. And that's the moment, the exact moment. That's embodiment. Maybe you've realized you've been looking to other people for validation. Then you make a decision and somebody disagrees with you. Again, there's your opportunity for practice. And I want to emphasize that we're not trying to get these moments perfect. Like, we're not always going to be able to, and what I'm being shown is like water moving. I love water analogy, right? Because it's so relevant to us as human beings. Sometimes there's an opportunity for compromise. You may need to make a compromise. What we're asking for you to do is to always come back to how it feels in your body. How does it feel in your body to go against what you know is fundamentally aligned and right for you? If you've got internal resistance or there's internal conflict, then what you're thinking about or what you're contemplating or what you're considering or what you're going to say yes to it's not in alignment. This is what we're asking from you. And again, you can take all of this and go, that sounds really pretty and beautiful and fluffy, or it sounds good. You don't have to you're not obligated, and you don't have to do any of it. Only what feels right for you. And how many of us really have said yes? I know I have. The amount of times that I've said yes to something, and then 15 minutes later or half an hour later or an hour later, I'm like, why did I say yes? But it's still a beautiful opportunity for awareness, right? Becoming aware of our automatic processes, our automatic responses, our automatic thinking. So maybe next time you'll recognize it while you're saying yes, and eventually you might find yourself taking a pause, saying, I'll get back to you, or really checking in with what you want to do rather than what you feel you should do. And that's growth. That's how patterns begin changing. That is also, and what's coming through to me is like the words autonomy, sovereignty, expansion, and growth. So they're all beautiful pathways, gateways, portals into that. And again, we're not saying you have to do that. We're just highlighting to you that you have the opportunity to have that experience should you choose to do so. With that in mind, also, we have later on this week, Venus and Saturn move into opposition. And this brings relationships, values, responsibilities, and boundaries into the conversation. I love how everything is so beautifully aligned. One of the questions that came through very strongly for me around this was, how do I stay connected to another person without disconnecting from myself? And it's so interesting. I had this conversation today. I'm sure that many of you, and I know that I myself have experienced codependency in relationships. And sometimes, as I said, relationships require compromise. I just love the segue. I love the alignment. I love the synchronicity. Sometimes we genuinely say yes because we want to give. We want to be a part of something. We want to make somebody else happy, genuinely want to make somebody else happy. And the opposite of that is sometimes we say yes, and this is connected to what your underlying subconscious beliefs may be. Sometimes we do say yes because we're afraid of what will happen if we say no. Will we have love withdrawn from us? Will we be rejected? Will we upset somebody? Will we be on some level, whatever that may be? And I'm not speaking to, and this may be very real for you, but I know through my theta healing practice as a practitioner, through working with clients, even with the work that I do on myself, there can be the underlying fears of punishment or persecution. And the invitation here is to look at what the underlying response is. They're two different behaviors. The two behaviors are exactly the same. You're saying yes to something, but the inside motivation may be completely different and driven by different underlying fears or beliefs. So this is the invitation. So rather than judging your choices in this week ahead, can you become curious about them? Why am I choosing this? Does this feel true for me? Am I honoring myself here as well as the other person? That's relationship with yourself in practice. A lot to think about. We're only halfway through. I'm only joking. And this is where humor, we as human beings, no matter where we are in our journeys, we tend to take ourselves so seriously. Like, we really do. We take everything so incredibly seriously. And sometimes we do just have to laugh. Sometimes we have to look at this movie, look at this story, look at this scene, and take a step back and almost imagine that you are looking through the director's camera lens and go, you know what? Like, sometimes it's really big and it really does matter and it really is important. And I'm talking about how seriously we take things. There are situations where we need to be serious. What we're asking you, and this is a little bit of the Leo energy as well, like, can you just soften? Can you soften? Can you pause? Can you challenge with humor what's coming up for you? I do this often. There'll be a scenario, my ego mind, my subconscious mind goes crazy with all these, and it's never, I'll take that back. It's not always fun, because when the ego mind and the subconscious come into play, it's usually fear, anxiety, it's a story. And so what I'll do is I'll recognize it, and then I'm like, I'm not telling this story today. I'm not playing this game today. This is not what I want to experience today. This is not who I want to be. This is not who I choose to be. And then I find that the energy and the intensity of that starts to dissipate. We also are moving out of Leo towards the end of this week, and we're shifting into the season and the vibration of Virgo. Now, I love this transition because Leo it's been all about authenticity and courage and expression, and Virgo brings us back into the everyday life, our routines, our habits, our health, and our well-being. The choices that we make when nobody else is looking. What are we doing behind closed doors? What are we not admitting to ourselves or to others? And this is where I think a lot of our inner work becomes real. We can have the most profound spiritual insight in the world. But what happens on Monday morning? Don't we all know that? Haven't we all experienced that? So how do you speak to yourself? How do you treat your body? What do you tolerate? What do you prioritize? Do you listen when something inside of you says no? Do you listen when you receive that insight, that intuition? Do you trust yourself when something feels right, even though somebody else doesn't understand it? You could know with every fiber of your being that something that you want to do, a choice you want to make, a decision that you're contemplating feels so right. It's like you just know. And then the moment that somebody questions you, I've experienced this, I'm sure you all have as well. The moment that somebody questions, asks a question, or doesn't have the same excitement or understanding, then you start to question yourself and think that maybe you're wrong. And this is where the work lives, not just in the extraordinary moments, but in the ordinary ones that we live through every single day. Yeah. We also have Sun and South Node in Leo before the end of the week. Now, I'm not an astrologer. I'm someone who is deeply interested in the cosmic cycles, the moons, the energies out there, and I love learning about the symbolism and sharing what I'm learning with you. And traditionally, the South Node is associated with what is familiar, old patterns, old identities, ways of being that we know incredibly well. They feel safe. And because this is happening in Leo before we shift into Virgo, I think there's a beautiful question here around identity. I've been in what I feel is a perpetual seeker of my identity. Who am I? What makes me who I am? Who am I choosing to be? And the thing about that is that we've learned who to be through our conditioning and our programming, and that's not necessarily who you truly are. It's maybe you've learned to be the strong one. Maybe you've been the go-to person to everybody else. Maybe you're the one that everyone knows is reliable. You're the person it's fierce independence. You're just the person that never needs anything. You're the peacemaker. Maybe you're the rescuer. Maybe that version of you has served a purpose. Maybe it's kept you safe. Maybe it's protected you. Maybe it's helped you. Maybe it's what's gotten you through a difficult time in your life. And, you know, we can have enormous compassion for ourselves through all of those labels, whatever they are for you, whatever identity you've taken on, whatever role you've chosen. Let's have compassion for that version of you because it did serve you in those moments. The question now, though, is, do you still need to have that? Does that identity, that version of you, serve you now? Do you still need to take on that role, embody that role, live that role? Or is it time for change? That's the biggest question. And we don't erase who we were, because we've learned from those experiences. They've taught us something about ourselves. They've helped shape who we are today. And also, it ties into embodiment. I love getting information. It's like, can we integrate what that taught us and how that served us? And can we allow all of those identities, those roles, those experiences to then become part of our lived wisdom, which is embodiment? Yeah, I love that. All right, let's see who the goddess is that wants to step forward to support us and walk with us in this week ahead. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, the goddess Frigg. I love her. Let's see what she has to say. Firstly, she weaves her threads of foresight, love, and protection around you. Embrace the strength of your inner wisdom and intuitive guidance. Love how it's all aligned. What she is actually expressing and sharing with me is, while we may not always have the clarity or see the bigger picture, it's like what she's saying is, while we may not always be able to see that, it's like the overarching greater expression of who we are. So our soul, our higher self, the divine, can see the bigger picture, and it's kind of like we're getting these nudges and is gently trying. Sometimes we get it and sometimes we don't, and that's okay as well. Sometimes we are always being moved into the right direction to what serves us through the lens of the bigger picture. And she is offering you that support and that guidance as you move forward in the week ahead. And again, she's like, we don't have to have all of the answers right now. We don't need to know what all of the moving parts of the whole are. She's inviting us to have a level of trust that all of the pieces will fit together in the way that best serves you in any given moment. Oh, I love this. She's offering you her protection. And she's asking you to have fun with curiosity in this week ahead. Can you be more playful with aligning to your intuition, with recognizing the signs of the universe, our intuitive signs? And I am one I will acknowledge out loud verbally when I receive clarification, when I receive a download, when I receive an intuitive message. And I was working with a brand new client this week, and I just forgot to mention that that's how I work. So I found myself in the middle of conversation after going, oh yeah, thanks, that's right. Oh yeah, thanks, that's right. And that, or just, trying to get a piece of information back, and I'm like, just bring it back in for me. Oh yeah, thanks. So I had to then clarify that for her. The lesson in that is, each time that we acknowledge, recognize, validate, confirm our intuition, a sign, a nudge, knowing, an insight or even clarity, an aha moment, we want to say thank you and acknowledge it, because what we're doing is we are strengthening our intuitive muscle. Yeah? So cool. So as you move through this week ahead, instead of asking yourself, what else do I need to fix? Or even, what else do I need to learn? Try asking, what am I being invited to practice now that I know what I know? Because you don't know what you don't know. And now you're being given the pathway and the opportunity to acknowledge what you do know. Because we don't have to wait until we're completely healed before we can begin living differently. We don't need to know exactly who we're becoming before we become it. And that's embodiment, not perfection. Practice, one choice at a time. And I'll be back next week to explore the lunar eclipse on the 28th and what that may be bringing forward for us. So until then, as always, take beautiful care of yourself, be kind and gentle with yourself, and go gently on you. Go gently on you. That's the final piece of wisdom and message they want to bring through. Namaste. Blessed be.